I quaffed freely from the fountain of youth, and enjoyed it a while. Then I got bored stiff. Took her to the movies, she invited me, and did it only because I've passed beyond the years of adolescence and didn't know how to crawfish out of it. After which, because it seemed the proper thing to do, I volunteered to ride her home in my car. And it was then that I saw Barker leaving the Lawrence home. So, you see, Leverage, my knowledge is the result of pure accident, and not of all the fruit of keen perception. Well, anyway, Carol, you knew, and that takes the edge off what I told you. Not at all, returned Carol seriously. For while what I discovered is perhaps valuable, that combined with the fact that Barker has been there once before, and that on the first visit when Lawrence was probably at home, he stayed nearly 5 times as long as he did when we know that Lawrence was not there, that is of help, or ought to be. What do you think of it? Carol hesitated. I don't know what to think, Eric. I'm afraid I'm thinking about it more than I have any right. We've been so long without anything to work on that we're liable to let this bit of information throw us off our balance. But of course we'll look more deeply into it. How? Again Carol chuckled. Our little friend Miss Rogers is suffering from a large case of hero worship. I'm it. And so, when I saw Barker leaving her home, I immediately made an engagement to call upon her tomorrow night. You call on that kid? Suddenly Leverage lay back in his swivel chair and gave vent to a peal of raucous laughter. He banged his fist on the arm of the chair. Oh, boy! That's the snappiest yet. David Carroll paying a social call on a 17-year-old kid. Mama, ain't that the richest? Carol made a wry face. Needn't rub it in. It's bad enough anyway. And, growing serious, I'm hoping to meet Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence. They ought to prove interesting. But Leverage could not tear himself away from the sheer humor of the situation. What the devil you and her going to talk about? Foxtrot steps? Is the camel walk vulgar? Frat dance? Next week's basketball game? Say, David, I'd give my chances of heaven to be hidden behind the door. So would I, said Carol wryly. Above all things, counseled Leverage with mock severity, don't you go making love to her. Carol reached a muscular hand across the table. His sinewy fingers closed around a glass paperweight. He held this poised steadily. One more crack out of you, Eric, and I'll slam this against your head. You're a pretty good chief of police, but you're a rotten humorist. Just the same, grinned the chief. I can see that this joke is on you. And now, what? For one thing, and Carol's manner was all business again, I want every bit of dope I can get on Gerald Lawrence and his wife. I know that Warren was very intimate at the house. Friendly with both wife and husband, according to what Miss Rogers says. That connects them up. What I want to find out now is where both of 'em were the night Warren was killed. Put a couple of your best men out to gather this dope. There isn't any of it too minor to interest me. Meanwhile, I'll pump the kid. I have a hunch that this isn't going to be a cold trial. It better not be, or Mr. David Carroll is going to find himself with one unsolved case on his hands. Yes, sir, if this is a blind lead, we're up against it for fair. It isn't going to be entirely blind, postulated Carroll. Barker assures us of that. End of chapter 11. Recording by Roger Moline.